Eddie Fisher was one of the biggest pop stars of the 1950s, known as much for his string of #1 hits as the scandals surrounding his romantic entanglements. At the height of his fame, he dated Hollywood's most beautiful actresses and was deemed America's favorite husband when married to Debbie Reynolds. However, one fateful relationship change torpedoed his career and reputation in a blaze of headlines. When Fisher died in 2010, his legacy remained complex, with as many questions as answers about his dramatic decline. Join Facts First as we unravel the multifaceted story behind his meteoric rise, years of turmoil, and details of his remarkable life and times. Early success and marriage to Debbie Reynolds. Eddie Fisher was born into a poor Jewish immigrant family in Philadelphia in 1928. He grew up struggling with malnutrition as his parents struggled to make ends meet. Fisher found an escape from his bleak circumstances through his singing, which he displayed from a young age. His incredible talent was noticed when he performed on a local radio station at 12 years old. This opened new doors for Fisher that led to regular gigs singing in bands during his teen years. It was clear he'd been blessed with an extraordinary gift, but it was his charming personality and maturing stage presence that truly began to captivate audiences. As he gained more experience singing live, he blossomed into a charismatic entertainer capable of connecting with any crowd. It made him a hot commodity, and soon impresarios were fighting over the chance to represent him. Fisher signed with legendary Victor Records in 1950 and became an instant chart topper. With good looks and a smoldering charm to match his voice, he swiftly ascended to the level of a teen idol. Fisher's popularity exploded, and before long he had displaced Frank Sinatra himself as the top male vocalist in America. But despite the massive success and adoration of fans, Fisher still felt unfulfilled. It was around this time that he met actress Debbie Reynolds on a blind date, arranged by movie studio employers. Fisher was immediately smitten by her sunny, girl-next-door charm and elegant beauty. Their whirlwind romance enthralled the nation. Within months of meeting, Fisher and Reynolds hastily married in 1955, surrounded by a media circus. However, what the public saw as a picture-perfect marriage was troubled behind closed doors. Fisher found Reynolds cold and argumentative in private, leading to major issues in their intimacy. They both admitted the marriage was a mistake almost immediately, but stayed together unhappily for a few more years. This was likely because their studio bosses instructed them to. But eventually, the incompatibility and unhappiness bubbling under the surface would destroy their union in the most dramatic of ways. Infamous affair with Elizabeth Taylor. As the marriage to Reynolds continued to deteriorate in hidden view, Fisher found himself drawn into the orbit of the world's most famous actress, Elizabeth Taylor. Though already married at the time to film producer Mike Todd, Taylor and Fisher had bonded over shared heartbreak. Todd and Reynolds had been close friends, so when Todd was tragically killed in a 1958 plane crash, Fisher was one of the few people Taylor trusted to lean on. What started as a platonic comfort erupted into a forbidden passion. Fisher and Taylor began a clandestine love affair behind tightly closed doors, hoping to keep it under wraps, knowing the scandal it could cause. But in a sign of what was to come, their secret could not remain private for long. Tabloids soon got wind of their relationship after eyewitnesses reported seeing them affectionate in public. Rumors swirled for months as their fans, studio bosses, and, most disturbingly for Fisher, Reynolds, remained in the dark about his betrayal. When proof finally emerged in the form of intimate photos, the scandal exploded with seismic force. Revered as the picture of charm and boyish good looks, Fisher was decried as a cad. Meanwhile, Taylor faced accusations of breaking the sacred rules of female friendship by stealing another woman's husband. As the insults and threats poured in, Fisher's promising career disintegrated before his eyes, seemingly overnight. All endorsements and movie deals dissolved as the public turned on him. Still, in the midst of losing everything, Fisher refused to abandon Taylor, filing for divorce from Reynolds to officially commit to his new love. Decline and substance abuse issues. While his relationship with Taylor received intense public fascination, professionally Fisher found himself a pariah in the aftermath of the scandal. Work completely dried up as all of Hollywood shunned him as too toxic. His marriage to Taylor in 1959 did little to change this. With his career in ruins, Fisher fell into a deep depression. Seeking an escape, he steadily increased his reliance on quote-unquote vitamin shots administered by shady doctor Max Jacobson. Unbeknownst to Fisher, the injections were laced with amphetamines and other drugs. The shots gave Fisher the energy and anxiety relief he desired, but pulled him headfirst into substance dependence. As his drug use escalated, so too did tensions with Taylor off camera. Her own issues with addiction and volatile temperament put constant strain on their relationship. When she began an affair of her own with co-star Richard Burton in 1961, it proved the final nail in Fisher and Taylor's union. They divorced, and Fisher spiraled further into substance abuse to cope with the heartbreak. He married 3 more times over the next decades, first to dancer Gloria Holloway, then to actress Connie Stevens in 1967. Both unions were turbulent, and Fisher's infidelity led to their ends. Through it all, his addictions to various substances and newfound gambling problems created chaos. By the 1980s, despite more marriages and live performances, Fisher struggled greatly with hearing loss, poverty, and the mental and physical tolls of years of abusing drugs and alcohol. He was a shell of his once glowing self. Only a final marriage to Betty Lynn in 1993 seemed to give him stability in his later life. Legacy and continued fascination. Even in his later years, living a quieter life with Betty Lynn, Fisher still captivated the public's imagination. Rumors and tell-all books about his riveting past kept interest alive in how such a gifted performer could lose it all. The fascination only grew stronger following his death from surgery complications in 2010 at age 82. Obituaries reflected on Fisher's immense early success, but focused more on his soap opera-worthy romances and decline. To the intrigue of generations too young to remember him at his peak, biographers delved deep into the psychological factors fueling his addictions and choices. While sensitive to his struggles, works ensured the salacious details endured. In the decades since, documentaries and podcast episodes have profiled Fisher extensively. Regardless of the gravity of his actions, audiences remain enthralled by his startling rise and falling arc. He represented lessons about fame and redemption. Some defended him as a product of a harsher era, others felt he caused too much hurt. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Eddie Fisher? Are you surprised his professional career was ruined by his off-screen antics? Let us know in the comments section below.